Hey, what's going on? This is Yeshua Speaks, Road to Emmaus Apologetics. I just wanted to take out a moment of time, just to talk about the word firstborn. It's one of the most misunderstood and misapplied words in the Bible. And because of that, it has been used by groups like Jehovah Witnesses and Hebrew Israelites, both which have their roots attached to an ancient heresy called Arianism, that teaches that Jesus Christ was created, that he was not God, but that he was not the Most High God, that he was not Yahweh, but he had a nature that was similar to Yahweh, and therefore he is not of the same substance with the Father, but of a lesser substance, which is, a problematic heresy. And so I just wanted to address that particular issue. And they cited Colossians chapter 1, verse 15 as their proof text for this, which is where it says that he is the image of the invisible God and the firstborn of all creation. Well, according to Jehovah Witnesses, to their publication called Enjoy Life Forever, on page 63, it states, and I quote, Jesus is a powerful spirit who lives in heaven. He was created by Jehovah God before everything else. And for that reason, he is called the firstborn of all creation, Colossians 1, verse 15. They go on to say the Bible refers to as God's only begotten son, or the Bible refers to him as God's only begotten son because Jesus alone was directly created by Jehovah. Now that's problematic on so many levels, even in of itself, because the word only begotten, whenever it's used in the Bible, at the very least implies two things. One, that the one who is only begotten has the same nature as the one that he's only begotten of. Or, in other words, if the Father is created, I'm sorry, not created, but if the Father is eternal, and Jesus Christ, being his only begotten Son, will therefore also be eternal because they have to have the same nature by definition of that term, only begotten, or monogenes in the Greek. If the Father is the creator, then it would also mean that by the fact that Jesus Christ is monogenes, that is having that be him being the unique one of a kind son of the Father who is creator, he would also have to be creator as well. It also implies, at the very least, something else known as the relational distinction between two persons. In other words, the one who is monogenes, or the only begotten, cannot be the same person as the one who he is only begotten of. So therefore, in any way, no way, shape, and form is Jesus Christ ever the Father. Why? Because he is the only begotten. He is the monogenes. He is the one of a kind Son. Therefore, he cannot be the Father who is not begotten in this particular context. And this, I mean, this works throughout the Bible. We talk about Hebrews chapter 11, verse 17, where Isaac is the only begotten, that is the monogenes, the one of a kind son in relationship to Abraham, his father. Therefore, we know at the very least that because because Abraham is human, therefore Isaac has to be human at the very least to qualify as monogenes, or the one of a kind son. Also, it also means that Isaac cannot be his father, Abraham. Why? Because Isaac is the one of a kind son. One of a kind, or monogenes, is an adjective to describe sonship, or to describe the son. It is an adjective. It's a word that describes. So yeah, so the very fact that Jehovah Witnesses would use the term monogenes, or only begotten, as is translated in the English, to enforce this notion that Jesus Christ was the first created, the one who was directly created by God, is completely false, is completely problematic on so many levels, and it is a loaded presupposition that they have that is not derived from the text itself. So we just wanted to talk a little bit, and I didn't really want to spend a lot of time dealing with the term monogenes, but because it was part of their statement to enforce the idea that Jesus Christ being the firstborn means that he's first created, I felt it was important to tackle that. Because it also deals with this other issue, and that's in reference to, again, the word firstborn. So notice that um, notice that how Jehovah Witnesses use the term firstborn to mean that which was created first, or first created. By this, it does not mean it. By this is, but this is not what it means. Here is some insight from the Greek word protokos, in the Hebrew word bakor or vekar. It denotes two things. It could be pertaining to the birth order, or number two, it can mean having special status. The unifying theme is that it speaks to a privileged position that is typically associated or given to the oldest child of a family, specifically the eldest son, who was expected to receive the inheritance, or simply put, this is more so about status in relation to a category. Um, and let me just pull this up just so that you can kind of see something that I think is very relevant to what we're dealing with when we talk about the word protocols, or firstborn as it's translated in the English, in Bible Hub. And I'm just going to go here real quick. Give me 1 second as I pull this up, because I want you to really see this. All right, all right. So I got it up. So it's Colossians chapter 1, verse 15. And I'm gonna pull this up in the interlinear right here. And you're gonna see this particular word. Let me see if I can just kind of bring this in a little bit more so you can kind of see what I'm looking at. Hopefully this is big enough. Um, so let's see. So, all right. So you got this word here is protocols. And I'm just going to click on this number 4416. And you're going to see as we go down, the word is protocols here. And you're going to see that it can, in the KJV, it's also translated as first begotten. The word begotten and the word born is used synonymously. And you're going to see as it goes down here, it's from from protos and the alternative tikto. So in other words, firstborn. Um, and then as I go down here, it's going to say protocols, that is specifically refers to Christ as the first to experience glorification, i.e., at his resurrection. And you have the associated passages. And then it says also for this and countless other reasons, Jesus is preeminent. In other words, protocols, that is the unequivocal sovereign over creation. But that's not what I really want. I just didn't want to get there just quick. I wanted you to kind of see this. And this is also pointing down to the historical use. And I'm liking the fact that you guys get to walk through this with me so you can see I'm not making things up. But here it is. It says in the Old Testament roots, and let me just pull this up. Old Testament roots and covenantal significance. In Israel scriptures, the firstborn male received a double portion. And you see the reference here is Deuteronomy 21, verse 17, and represented the family before God. Exodus 13, verse 2. The title therefore carried legal, right? The title therefore carried legal weight and spiritual symbolism. The firstborn belong to the Lord, signifying both ownership and protective favor. Again, both ownership and protected favor. Now, what I thought was just also interesting is that Dr. Ann Kay, I believe that's her name, Dr. Ann Kay Davis, Dr. Ann K. Davis, she gives a pretty in-depth analysis of the word firstborn, and I will attach the link in the description. So if you go to the description of this particular episode, you'll get a chance to see what Dr. Ann K. Davis says in reference to firstborn. She gives a really solid, thorough breakdown. And if you look at the word firstborn in the context of Colossians chapter 1, verse 15 and 18, you will see certain words or phrases repeated over and over that gives insight to what the Apostle Paul said when he used the word firstborn in the passage. And I'm going to go ahead and bring up Colossians chapter 1, verse 15. Um, Colossians chapter 1, verses 15 to 18. Give me 1 second as I do that. Colossians chapter 1, verses 15 to 18. And I'm going to pull this up uh, in the Bible Gateway, and I'm going to open this up, and then I'm going to share my screen so you can kind of see exactly where I'm getting at with this. And you also see why the position that the Jehovah Witnesses have is incorrect, as well as the Hebrew Israelites who also hold on to this particular frame of teaching or this narrative. Because again, it's not about is not about you having to believe what I believe. Well, I want you to believe what I believe in this regard because I believe that what I'm saying is actually true, but I want you to have a chance to pretty much see it for yourself. And so now I'm about to open the screen so that you can also see exactly where I'm coming from when we're dealing with this issue of firstborn. Because again, I believe that this is extremely important, and this is something that cannot be missed or should not be overlooked or not properly understood, right? So here we have we have it in verse 15 where it says here that he is the image let me see, let me get my mouse on it so you can see it as I'm seeing it. Right, here it goes. He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. For by him all things were created, both in the heavens and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities. All things have been created through him and for him. He is before all things, and in him all things hold together. He is also the head of the body, the church, and he is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, so that he himself will come to have, what does it say? First place in everything. Oh, now this is pretty loaded, and I really want to do kind of like a breakdown of this because this is where it gets deep, right? Notice here, notice that there's certain words that are being used, right? Notice the word phrases. The first word phrase we see is before all things. The second word phrase we see is head of the body. The third word phrase that we see is the beginning. And the fourth word phrases we see is first place in everything. So in relationship to all creation, right? In relationship to all creation and the new creation, Christ has chief status, preeminence. He is basically the boss of all bosses, and all creation is his inheritance in reference to and in his is his inheritance in reference to the messianic fulfillment. The Apostle Paul, by saying that Christ is the image of the invisible God, is stating that he exists having the full status and quality of deity, as well as the sovereign king, because he is the means by which all things were created. Therefore, he is Yahweh. And so, therefore, so really, in a sense, Colossians chapter 1, verse 15 is in no way, shape, form, by any stretch of the imagination, saying that Christ is created or that Christ is the first creation. Is actually making the argument for the opposite, and that is Christ is not only the sovereign king, but that he is the creator of all things. Verse 16 says, "For by him," that word "for" is another way of saying because. So, for by him or because of him, all things were created, both visible and invisible, all things in the heavens and in the earth, whether thrones or dominion. I mean, the list goes on and on. Christ is the creator, therefore Christ is Yahweh. That's the very argument the Apostle Paul is making in Colossians chapter 1, verse 15. So this idea that Jehovah Witnesses employ to say that, oh, protocols, or firstborn in Colossians 1:15 means that Christ is first created is far from the truth. I want to also point you to passages like Psalm 89. I'm going to just pull this up and I'm just going to end on this note. Just give me 1 second. And it's in Psalm chapter 89. Um, Psalm chapter 89. And if I'm not mistaken, it's in verse 27. I didn't prepare to actually go to the psalm, but I wanted you to see just how this is not implying the idea that Christ was created. So in Psalm 89, verse 27, I'm going to pull this open so that you can also see this, because I think this is radically dope. But check this out. And share my screen in just a second. You'll see it right here, right? This is Psalm 89. And if you look at verse 27, look at what it says. It says, "I also shall make him my firstborn, the highest of the kings of the earth." Notice there, here in this Hebrew parallelism, you see that the word firstborn denotes the highest of the kings. In other words, whether this is a reference to David, to Solomon, or ultimately to the descendant of David, or those who ruled in the the line of Davidic kingship, here notice that they have chief status in the category. I'm sorry, they have chief status in relationship to the category of kings. In other words, they have chief status as the highest kings in reference to all the kings that is on the earth. So firstborn here again is used to denote preeminence. No one would argue that David was the firstborn king. No one would argue, I'm sorry, let me backtrack. No one would make the argument that David was the first created king. There were many kings that came before David. Even in Israel, King Saul was a king before David became king. So the firstborn cannot mean that it's talking about one who is all. It does not always mean the one who is first in line for something. It's talking about chief status, the chief status of kingship in this particular case. Here's another passage, and again, I wasn't prepared for this, but I wanted to show you this, and I'm hoping that you guys are able to see my screen. I'm gonna call the passage out. I want to go to uh, um, Exodus chapter 4. Exodus chapter 4, um, verses 22 to 23. And you're 22 to 23, you're going to see this as well. Exodus chapter 4, 22 to 23. Check this out. This is God speaking to Moses, telling Moses to give this instruction to Pharaoh. Check this out. Exodus chapter 4, verses 22. Look at what it says. It says here, and I'm going to just get my mouse so you can follow along with me. It says, then you shall say to Pharaoh, thus says the Lord, thus says Yahweh. This is what Yahweh says. Israel is my son, comma, my firstborn. Hold on. Israel is my son, comma, my firstborn. Does that mean that Israel was the first nation created by God? Absolutely not. There were nations that existed before the nation of Israel came on the scene. But what it's saying is that Israel, because of their relationship to Yahweh, Israel has chief status in relationship to all the other nations. Israel is preeminent in the eyes of God. Israel is the means by which God is going to give his inheritance, right? Israel is going to be the nation that would inherit from God, that God would bring into his promise. So again, the use of the word firstborn does not denote creation. It cannot mean creation. So therefore, whenever you're running into this term firstborn that is so popularly used by Jehovah Witnesses to teach the idea that Christ has created, you can show them that the term firstborn, as seen being used in other passages, does not denote or does not mean created. It cannot mean created. So you are armed with some truth. You're armed with some facts. I showed you the passages. I've gone through, and again, this is short, but I just thought I would do something really quick just to kind of inform my people, all of us, the meaning of these words so that we do not get lied to, hoodwinked, or bamboozled by false religions out there. Again, this is Yeshua Speaks, signing off. God bless. Peace. Y'all hold it down. I am officially out.